Welcome to this special Thursday episode of the Healthy by Heather Brown podcast. Since this season is all about marriage, today we're bringing back one of my all-time favorite marriage-related episodes from prior seasons. Whether you're listening solo or with your spouse, this episode is full of practical ways to be intentional in your marriage, mind, body, and spirit. Eric and I always say in our marriage corner that when your relationship feels strong and connected, it positively impacts every other area of your life, your mental clarity, physical health, and even your spiritual well-being. So let's take time to invest in our marriages just like we do in other areas of our health. During your Sunday reset this week, I encourage you to carve out time to plan for connection. Small, intentional actions can absolutely transform your relationship. Now, this episode originally aired in season 1 through 5, so you might hear a few ads or references that aren't current, but the wisdom and value in this conversation is, of course, just timeless. So let's dive in. Eric Brown, you are back for the first time for a Me and You episode for season 2. How's it feel?
Yeah, full episode. It's just like riding a bike, right?
Yep, hop right back on there.
That's right.
So I guess Happy New Year from Eric and me for the first time together on a full episode to you guys, getting close to the end of January. Eric, do you have any goals or New Year's resolution things you want to tell anybody about?
You know, I used to be a big kind of resolutions guy, but as I get older, it's just one of those things where, it's a constant process of just kind of analyzing what your daily goals are, what your weekly goals are. I think it's important to set yearly goals as well, too. I'm not necessarily sure resolutions are the best way to go about meeting those goals. I'm not saying they're bad things, but I think it's more of a process than really just naming something you want to do as opposed to, every day just reassessing kind of what those goals are.
Yeah, I get very much so in the mindset for the business of goals at the beginning of each year. But personally, it's more so okay, I'm just ready to push the reset button after all the Christmas and holiday eating and indulgences and such.
Yeah, I think sometimes too, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves when we set these specific resolutions or these goals. And then when we don't meet them almost immediately or in the time frame that we've given ourselves, it can be very discouraging at times. And, it's very easy to get depressed or feel bad about those kind of things if you don't meet those goals, when in fact, it really is just a process. As long as you keep moving forward a little bit every single day, it's kind of like working out. We talked a lot about physical health in season 1. Resolutions and goals, I think that ties into mental health a lot. And it really is a process. It's analyzing every single day, resetting those goals, and just moving forward a little bit day by day. And yeah, I think that's the way you go about those.
Yeah, for sure. I actually just was doing some kind of, now I'm trying to remember where I heard this from. If I remember, I'll link to it in the show notes. But how I was talking about how men, your hormones are wired to be on 24-hour cycles where you almost reset. But for women, obviously, our hormones regulate us once a month. So it's such a different mindset. I feel like that even plays into your mental and physical health as well. And from a hormonal level as well. Oh gosh, what do you have to say?
Well,
he's got this ass-eating grin on his face.
You mentioned hormones, and I don't know if you want me to go down this road, but I have been talking about testosterone a lot here recently for men.
That he has.
Maybe we can save that for later. But I am a big believer in testosterone supplementation or supplements to increase testosterone in males. That's for another show.
But just to clarify, you don't mean
I'm not talking about human growth hormone or anabolic steroids or anything like that.
Right. He just means over the counter.
All natural foods that you can eat that can increase testosterone, over the counter type, supplements that can increase testosterone. I actually do think that does play a big part in our mental health as well, too, because it can provide you with energy. If you are working out, it can provide you with better workout sessions, I believe. And I've seen benefits. Also, sexual health benefits as well, too.
Here we go. It's not that season, babe. Not sexual health season.
Season 3. I've been pushing for sexual health in season 3. So, y'all.
He really has.
Please give some feedback if you want to hear season 3 sexual health as it relates to relationships and marriages.
Where should they give that feedback, babe?
On Apple iTunes reviews.
On the reviews. Okay. Yeah. Well, let's see how much power Eric has over the audience. Let's see if y'all back him up on this.
Tell us what you want to hear about our sex lives.
Oh, gosh. All tastefully done, of course.
Of course. Always tasteful.
Anyway, okay. So we actually got a reader question, speaking of reviews and y'all's feedback.
Is it a sex question?
No, babe. Sorry to disappoint you. But we got a reader question. And obviously, like you were saying, we talked a lot about physical health last season. And this one, we're talking about other areas of our lives and going into mental health. And I think that it's easy for a lot of couples to forget that even though our partners may look strong and like they've got it all together, they really need their support mentally as well. And sometimes you can't see that mental weakness or like wavering as much as you can. Like, if you're physically tired, I know it. Eric's going to be like almost passing out on the couch. He's tired. When we were talking about this season, one of my team members reminded me of the verses from Ecclesiastes 4:9-12. And I'm going to read them. Just hopefully it helps kind of take us in the direction of the reader question that was given. It says, 2 are better than 1 because they have a good reward for their toil. For if they fall, one will lift up his fellow, but woe to him who is alone when he falls and has not another to lift him up. Again, if 2 lie together, they keep warm. Eric, is this leading into your sexual?
See, I knew this was going to be a sexual question.
Anyway, if 2 lie together, they keep warm. But how can one?
You didn't know that I already knew you were going to say that.
You're just teeing me up.
Perfect segue. Yeah.
I love it.
Sorry.
Can one keep warm alone? And though a man might prevail against one who is alone, 2 will withstand him. A threefold cord is not quickly broken. So, all that to say, that leads me down to our audience question, which is, Eric and Heather, what are both of your tips on reducing stress for yourself when life gets out of balance, and how do you reset?
So I think that goes back to something that we talk about a lot, and we've talked about it on this podcast before. A lot of it has to do with communicating, and you mentioned, I can tell when Eric is tired, not necessarily just because of, physical attributes or, physical manifestations of me being tired, but also too, just the other day, I was after, a hard day at work, I came home, I just told you, I said, hey, I'm just really tired. And you're like, okay, thanks for telling me. And you helped out that night. And like you said, I was passed out on the couch at like 8:00. And, just like that verse says, that's a mini example, but you lifted me up that night. And there's other times where you tell me things that you need or you need help with. And just after this podcast, you said, Eric, can you help put together this piece of furniture for Finn's room?
For Finn's room, that honey-do list.
Yeah. I mean, I know that it is reducing stress in your life because it is something I know that you want to get done.
Yes.
And yeah, just by you communicating, like, I'd like for you to do this project, and I want to do those projects for you and reduce that stress in your life and help you out. And it really does just go back to communication. And once again, we talk about expectations a lot, and the only way to know each other's expectations is to communicate them, because, it's unfair to expect your spouse or significant other to know what your expectations are. So always err on the side of discussing those expectations, what you do expect. And I think that goes a long way.
Yeah. And actually, as you were talking, it reminded me, and we can link to this prior from season 1, Dr. Kelly LeVeque was on the podcast, and we talked a lot about marriage. And she said that one thing that she and her husband do that I think is really cool is they have a shared note on their phone. And she was like, it's just a place for me to brain dump all the natural things that for a mom, you like, as in general, I would say, like, women, don't take offense to this, anybody, but in general, I would say, like, women, we're just more in tune to be, like, the mothers of the household and, like, noticing things more, like the laundry or the dishes, or has to go back to the school, or this field trip's coming up, or I need to tell Eric that this is going on with this school thing. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I most definitely would agree. I think for the most part, women are more in tune with those everyday activities that keep the house running. It's not always like that.
For sure.
I'm actually pretty good at a lot of those
Eric's
things.
Eric's great at a lot of those things, yes.
Because it stresses me out if things do get unorganized. So, but you know that about me.
Yes.
And, you will help out. Just last night, I said I would do the dishes, and you went ahead and did it. And I said, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. That's one of those small things that...
But I said that because he was on call last night and cooked us steaks on the grill. I was like, you did dinner while you were working. I am more than happy to do the dishes.
What would you say is the one household chore or activity that you just dread the most, that you just like, oh, I just wish Eric could do that more often than not?
I mean, I think that you do it already. It's the dishes and in the sink. I hate it. I don't mind loading the dishwasher. I don't love unloading the dishwasher, but I don't mind it. What I hate is, number one, putting away the clothes. I don't mind running the wash, but folding and sorting all the boys' clothes where you're like, I can't even tell whose this is, Leighton's or Finn's.
That's number one. And then number two would be the big dishes that you can't just throw in the dishwasher.
Yeah, I think you and I both agree the tediousness of folding all the clothes, because I don't think I have ever seen one of our children put clothes in their dirty clothes hamper the correct way. That it's always inside out.
Always.
Every single piece inside out. And oh my gosh, and they're smaller, clothes, and it takes that little extra 10 seconds. So I really try to be in the present when I am doing the laundry. It's okay. One piece at a time.
That's right. Put on a podcast while you do it.
But anyways, that was kind of a tangent. But.
Yes. But to get back to what Kelly had said she and her husband do is they do that shared note. And then that way, when it's things that she's like, there's no way he's going to know I got an email about this birthday party for a kid and we need to go buy a present for Johnny. Like she'll add things like that onto their shared note. So that way it's like, even if I don't get a chance to verbally tell him because I'm at work when that email came through, then I'll add it to our shared note, buy a gift for Johnny. Or like for me, I would have written this week, like the shelf, obviously it's better to communicate fully talking about those things. But how many times does it happen where you find out something at work or I find out something at work where we can't talk about it? And then at least it's in the shared note. I like that idea.
So I will say, I think it's a good idea. I think it depends on your relationship and the dynamic you have with your significant other on what is the best way. This is the first time I'm hearing of this. And for me personally, if we had a shared note and there just kept being things just randomly popping up without us discussing them, that would personally stress me out.
I hear you. Yeah.
And it's one more thing. Whereas, okay, we talk about this all the time, time, place, and manner to discuss certain topics or anything really. Those three things, time, place, and manner, are so important to having somebody be receptive to whatever it is you may want to talk about. So I guess this would go towards more of the time as well as the manner, setting a list like that. If it just kept growing and we didn't talk about it, that is one of those things that would actually increase stress on me.
That's good to know.
So I'm glad we're having this conversation right now.
That's right. I'm glad everybody can sit in on it.
We're not going to do that. But
if it works well for you and your marriage,
it could be a great idea. So
it's working for Dr. Kelly. Also, Eric just told himself that he didn't listen to that podcast episode. Rude.
Sorry.
It was specifically pretty much about women's health, so I can understand how you were like,
I do listen to 99% of them, but
yes, true. So funny. Anyway, so back on track. You answered that question, I feel like, about reducing stress. We've talked a lot about this, which we can link to the episodes about how working out obviously is important for us, getting those endorphins to release stress, alone time for you.
Well, I think also for you as well, too. We've talked about this before, but try and figure out what fulfills or what, just makes your significant other feel, valued, or what gives them, like you said, rest or energy or strength or whatever it may be. For you, I know it may just be a few hours to, I know this sounds cliched, but get your nails done or go out with your girls, have a girls' night out, things like that. Those things are very important, I know, to you, just like getting outside for me, and whether it's playing golf or, exercising for both you and me and having that separate time, figuring out what that is for your significant other and encouraging that of them is crucially important.
For their mental health, and which affects, everything.
Yeah. If you're individually mentally healthy, it's going to be good for your relationship.
100%.
And I think that it took me a long time to realize that thought as far as, being individually mentally healthy, how important that is to your overall relationship in your marriage.
Yes, for sure. Eric, this is also a side tangent, but it makes me think about, you were just talking about time, manner, place. Last night, I probably didn't have the best timing on asking you the favor that I asked you to do this morning. We, are doing the January challenge, what are you thinking about that, by the way? So for those of you that haven't been watching my Instagram stories, we're purging the item number per day of the day of the month. So like if it's January 24th, you get rid of 24 items out of your house. January 1, we did 1 item. So Eric, what have you thought about that so far?
Yeah, I think it's great. I'm all about streamlining and getting rid of clutter and making things more organized. So I do think that is one way, having small little goals. You actually told the story of somebody reached out to you and said they're doing that, but in kind of a unique way. They'll take one item, and whenever they go over to their, their friend's house, whoever friend's house it may be, they'll take this one item and randomly hide it in their other friend's house. It could be a book, it could be a picture frame, whatever it may be. And I don't know if I encourage that idea, but it was
Funny.
incredibly funny. And the person said that only one person they've done that to in their house has noticed it, but that's one way to go about that. I don't know if it's the best way. It's quite funny.
It is. So anyway, last night I was like, babe, me and Alita, who's another girl that's doing the purging challenge with me, I got rid of how many pillows? Probably like 5 pillows on, I think, day 5 or whatever.
Which I'm always supportive of. If we can get rid of just a few pillows, taking over our couch, taking over our bed, taking over, pretty much anywhere. But the problem is we get rid of 4 and we end up getting 6 back.
He's not lying. But to be fair, I said to Eric, I'm getting rid of these pillows because he said these look a little rough. They're looking a little worn.
A little dingy.
Yes. And so he was like, and I said, I will get rid of them, but first I got to find some more to replace them. Well, it just so happened that Alita, shout out to her and her family for purging, we got her pillows for only $5 each. So I saved you like $15 a pillow minimum there. And now we're getting rid of some of ours, getting in some new ones. But I asked Eric, I was like, oh, after you drop off Leighton from school, will you run by her house and pick up the things she's setting out for us to get? And he was like half asleep on the couch.
Well, let me tell you what I heard, all right?
Okay, what'd you hear?
I heard, because this is what typically happens is, Eric, can you take the lanterns and the pillows over to this person's house and drop them off? So it was a complete reversal. It wasn't, Eric, can you go pick these up? It was, it was, Eric, can you deliver these? So this morning, I will give Heather credit. It's incredibly nice because I was on call. I sleep out in the living room when I'm on call at nights. And I got up this morning to take Leighton to school after being on call. And Heather wrote me a very nice note in front of my bathroom sink. She knew I was going to be there and said, hey, I wish I had the note in front of me, but basically like, can you please get once again, I still didn't get it even after I read the message. It said, can you please get the lanterns and pillows from so-and-so's house, which I did remember that, but still in my mind, I was thinking, I'm delivering lanterns and pillows to Alita's house. So then you're still asleep. I'm looking all over the house for these well, we do have lanterns in our house.
We do, and pillows.
And they're over in this one corner. So I was like, okay, it must be these lanterns. Where are the pillows? So I'm wake you up. Hey, Heather, where are the lanterns and the pillows? You're like, what? No, you're picking them up. And I was like, oh, got it. Good. All right, let's go, Leighton. Let's get out the door. So, we aren't perfect is what I'm trying to say.
Exactly. And I didn't have the best timing.
Also, too, classic guy, just like hearing what you want to hear as well, too. It just couldn't get through my brain exactly what was going on. So
funny.
Anyways.
Okay. Well, Eric, I do want to share a little bit because the second part of her question is likewise, what are some ways you help your spouse do the same? We've kind of talked a little bit about that. Do you mind sharing a little bit about our experience where we both were at our like max stress level, kind of came to a head and all that stuff?
Yeah, sure. I guess we're really just like kicking it off right into the meat of mental health and I guess how it relates to our marriage. Mm-hmm. I just mentioned just before, how it took me a while to realize how important individual mental health was to a relationship or to a marriage. And I think really things came to a head around 7 years into our marriage. And for whatever reason, I do feel like a lot of the marriages and the relationships that we observe, I would say, kind of around that 7-year marriage is when things kind of start to bubble up a little bit in a lot of relationships and marriages. I'm not sure why that is. But for you and me, 7 years into our marriage, I had been working at KPMG as a public auditor. And we talked a little bit about this before, but just was not feeling fulfilled in that job. Didn't know if it was right for me. Probably was struggling with some anxiety and maybe a little depression at that time as well, too. And no kids at that time, I will say, just to kind of let you know where we were. But at that same time, had made the decision and prayed about it to change careers and go back to school to become a nurse practitioner. Tremendous decision. I don't want to go back on it at all. But it was one of those times where it was a very stressful time in our relationship. A lot of time constraints, basically not only going to school, but also working night shift and doing clinicals. So I was basically doing something pretty much 7 days a week, which I know for a lot of people that is just a reality, but it is very stressful as well, too. 7 years into our marriage, we got married when we were 22, so still kind of, late 20s. And we talk about this a lot with younger couples. You're still trying to figure out who you are, what makes you tick, what do you truly want, and what truly is important in your life. I still feel like a lot of people are figuring that out all throughout their 20s. And I think it came to a head in our relationship in that circumstance where I didn't realize it at the time, but a lot of my own insecurities, I was projecting those insecurities onto you. And it came to a head that seventh year in our marriage where I said things to you that I'm not proud of. And I said them in a way with a raised voice that I don't think anybody should speak to their spouse or their significant other in that way. And honestly, it was the most difficult time in our relationship, and it was one of the most stressful times in our relationship. And I give you a lot of credit because you were very honest. And a lot of times, people, when something's wrong in a relationship, they're afraid to speak up and speak truth to their significant other because they're afraid that it's going to push them away. And I give you credit because you were not afraid to do that. You said, Eric, I know things are stressful, but this is unhealthy. This is not good for our marriage, and we need to do something about it. And initially, like most people, I was very defensive of that at first. And, I think a lot of males are in general, thinking that, you have it together, you can figure it out yourself. It took a few days, it took a few weeks for me to just take a step back and just realize, what is truly important. And I said, yeah, you are right, Heather. And, let's get some help. Let's talk about this. Let's find a counselor where we can discuss these issues. And like I said, you were the one that really emphasized that. And I think that was the beginning of the process in our relationship of really communicating better. But also, too, it was a period for me. I'm not sure, and maybe you can speak to this in just a second. But for me to really analyze my own mental health, really analyze my own insecurities, whether that was trying to figure out, what job I wanted to do, am I going to fulfill financially, just trying to figure out what made me confident, because I think a lot of like I said, my insecurities, I was projecting those onto you. And a very popular term that's used right now, gaslighting, I look back and there was definitely ways that I was gaslighting you. And, it took me a while to realize that. And now that we've talked about it and we continue to mature and continue to grow, it's much easier to realize my own insecurities. And I think everyone is kind of susceptible to do that. But it is very difficult for a lot of people to step back, realize those own insecurities, and if they are projecting those onto their significant other, to actually internalize that and make a change, because we do not want to see our own faults. We do not want to see or, a lot of times be truthful with ourselves in the ways that we're hurting our significant other. But yeah, I think that was probably the most stressful time in our relationship, and just the communication. Like I said, you being honest about what you wanted out of our relationship. I mean, those were all critical things.
Can I ask you to also elaborate a little bit about how you learned about your relationship with the Lord more in those times? Because I feel like you do a really good job of painting that picture and what it helped you realize about Christ.
Yeah, sure. Most definitely. I tell the story that there's been a few times, and I know this is me personally, this is, what happened, that I feel like there's been a few times in my life where the Lord has almost directly spoken to me through prayer. One of them was when I was praying and, I felt like he was leading me to ask you to marry me, and the best decision in my life. Second time was praying and going through the career change. And I remember this specific time when we were going through the stressful time in our relationship. I remember, I do not do this very often at all, but I do remember getting down on my knees and praying to the Lord, dear Lord, just please let me figure out what needs to be done. What do you want of me? How do you want me to sanctify our marriage? And I think, and he spoke to me and he, said, hey, Eric, you need to talk about this. You need to figure out what's going on in your own life. And one of the biggest things for me was I had so much guilt in the way that I spoke to you and the words that I said, that I felt like I could not forgive myself. And when you feel that way, it's very easy to go down a road of depression when you feel like you're not worthy of your significant other. You're not worthy of, better things. And on my knees, it goes back to the principle that I already knew deep down in my heart, is that there's no reason to feel guilty. You don't have to bear that guilt yourself, because Christ has paid the ultimate price and he has lifted those burdens of guilt off of us. And once I really was able to get back to that core foundation, I was able to lift that guilt off of myself and take that next step to healing as far as mental health is concerned. and just growing spiritually and, just going back to those core faith foundational ideas. And that was vitally important. So I really appreciate you bringing that up as well, too, because that really was the critical portion of our story and our marriage.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that the word you kept using, like, help me if I'm wrong, but I think you kept saying like grace. Like it was such a refreshing reminder of what God's grace actually looks like and how big it is. It's endless.
For sure. We don't deserve his forgiveness, but he gives it freely. And, I think you were willing to forgive me. I was not willing to forgive myself in that moment. And I just feel like so many people hold so much guilt in their life. And if they just realize that they don't have to do that and they can give that guilt to the Lord, it will take a burden off you and it will truly change your life. So yeah, that's a big part of our marriage.
Yeah. I'm like, wow, amen. I'm not going to top any of that. So with all that, Eric, is there anything else you want to add before we wrap today's episode?
Like I said, this is like kind of diving right into the mental health of our marriage. And I think there's a lot of different ways that we could talk about different aspects of that story. And I'm looking forward to talking about that this season. I'm looking forward to a lot of fun marriage corners, maybe some more interesting random questions. I actually have, because we have gotten some feedback that people did appreciate my random U.S. history question of you in regards to Mount Rushmore.
True.
So I might have some U.S. history questions for Heather coming up. So yeah, be ready for that.
It's sure to be embarrassing. So tune back in to hear me embarrass myself on my lack of historical knowledge.
Hey, you could really like refresh your, just general U.S. history and you just really surprise people and just be like,
wow. I was pretty impressed with myself that I did eventually get to the four presidents.
Heather did know the capital of Vermont.
Oh, Montpelier?
Boom. Let's go.
Yes! Surprises never cease here on this podcast. Okay, babe. Well, thanks for being honest and coming on and joining us and sharing more about the mental health of our marriage, more about spiritual health as related to mental health. We hope you guys have a great day. Don't forget to leave us a comment and a review and let us know if you want, what was it, Eric? Sexual health season.
Sexual health season questions. That's right.
All right. Y'all have a great day. We'll talk to you next time.